All right, welcome, Dr. Misak. I'm so excited that you're here to talk about telomeres and how that, can impact our health and our aging process as well as thyroid conditions. So I always ask people how they got into what they're doing. So I'd love to hear your background and your story, how you got into doing what you're doing now.
Well, if you go back to childhood, we all have our own gifts, and mine was how do things work. So I
Right?
started taking apart my sister's dolls. I started taking apart toys, and I'm like, don't move anything, and I put them back together and stuff like that. And got to college and got interested in pharmacy. And then when I was in pharmacy, I loved all the anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, how does it work,
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got into after pharmacy school, I went to Duke Medical Center. I was rounding in clinical oncology and general medicine. And when I'd watch these cancer patients falling apart, I'd be like, well, what about the biochemistry? What about the vitamins? What about the need for the minerals? What about the needs for these? And they'd say there's no research on that. And then I go and pull research from the 50s and 60s showing all this stuff. Well, that's been refuted, and it never was, and it
Mm-hmm.
just led me down this path of how things work to where next thing I know, I heard about naturopathic doctors, and I'm flying out to Oregon and Washington to check out the schools. And then I find myself at National College of Naturopathic Medicine, now called National University of Natural Medicine in Portland, Oregon,
Mm-hmm.
for 4 years to get my doctorate in naturopathic medicine. And while I was there, I worked at a compounding pharmacy, so making the bioidentical hormones and working with naturopathic doctors because they're all licensed out there was just a whole nother experience in itself.
Right.
And so that kind of led to, I graduated, moved to Pennsylvania, and started to practice. And then it keeps growing from there because you what they teach you in naturopathic school is diagnostics and treating. Hey, you could treat that or support the thyroid with this. You can support the adrenals with this. But I kept wondering, like, well, how does it work? And eventually I got down to quantum chemistry and
Mm-hmm.
looking at the energy of what we are and how to monitor that through urine, saliva, and understanding energy efficiency. And as you fix the chemistry, all the other stuff starts to fix. So it's just been this big, like, and I still have all this other stuff that I still want to study on how it works because I've got ideas on because
Right.
everything is frequency and vibration, which goes back to Tesla.
Yeah, exactly. So I think people struggle to recognize something that they can't see, which is, in science that happens all the time. But when it comes to that whole other level of energy and quantum physics and that type of thing, it is really hard for people to wrap their brain around that. How do you even begin to educate the people you work with that
YouTube
type of
shows.
conversation? What's that?
YouTube shows.
Okay. Well, that should do it. Yes.
I have a Doc Misak channel, and basically I teach the aspect of how to monitor yourself. You monitor your chemistry and through your urine and your saliva. You do the urine sugars, which is called a Brix. You do the urine pH, saliva pH. So the Brix gives you an idea of potential energy because everything breaks down to sugar metabolism before it drops into that Krebs cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pHs give the idea of resistance and the speed of the energy. How efficient is the energy in you? And so the urine is like a post-digestive pH telling you how efficient your body being. And the saliva pH gives you like a pre-digestive, how strong is my liver bile in order to break down foods? And when they're separated, you can predict symptoms. The conductivity of the urine gives the idea of salts, and salts give an idea of the thickness of body fluids. And so
Mm-hmm.
you can determine, hey, things are going to move too fast, too slow. If the salts are too high, it irritates nerves, so you get nervousness, anxiety, and things like that start happening, numbness and tingling. And then we do cell debris, looking at the amount of cells that the body's turning over, because if you're building energy, you got to have waste. So you're
Right.
looking at the degree of the body's ability to waste. And then we look at nitrates in the urine, nitrates, and ammonia nitrates that give you the idea of protein building capacity for making new cells, or protein breakdown is like, am I breaking down or am I not digesting food and having waste that's toxic to the body? So you
Right.
look at the efficiency of the body's doing, you can tell people all the symptoms that they're having, you can predict what's going on, And I just teach. I just go and I watch miracles happen with people. And in the meantime, I go on YouTube and say, look, anybody can do this. And I think everybody should have a basic understanding of this.
That's a great platform to be on, to help educate people, take some things into their own hands so they can actually improve and optimize their health. So how is this different than, you mentioned the diagnostic, you're trained to diagnose and then treat accordingly. So from this analytical perspective, I know we've touched on a few things. Is there anything you can get into a little deeper than what you've already talked about with that?
Well, so if I ask you, do the people that you work with, have they gone to multiple doctors looking for, because they've hit rock bottom, right?
Usually, yep, usually
Okay,
many
so I
times.
thought this person looks at the numbers and says, hey, well, I think you have this to take this. Well, this one looks at it and says, well, I think you have this to take this. Everybody is trying to diagnose based upon what information they can do and guess what the diagnosis is so they can tell you, hey, try this. Well, when you're looking at analytics and you're looking at chemistry, we have a definition of what perfect chemistry is. There was a mathematical genius by the names of Kerry Reams, and he determined the frequency of human beings, that everything is frequency and vibration, goes back, and energy. Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, you have to think in terms of frequency and vibration. Einstein says, well, everything is relative, but it's all energy, heat, and electricity. It's the same thing as matter with the speed of light constant. And so you are heat and electricity, which comes down to vibration.
Right.
Well, this guy named Kerry Reams says, well, let's measure it. Let's figure out how to put an atom together versus take it apart. And so he turned around and determined the line of least resistance where energy is maximized. So I have a definition of mathematical perfect energy in a human being, and where each one of the variables of those things that I just talked about, bricks, pH, conductivity, cell debris, and nitrates, when each variable is away from ideal, you know where in the system something's happening and what you actually need to fix it. It's analytical. It's cause and effect. So I also look at live blood. I look at blood up on a television screen and say, look, if you have those cells, then those cells are consistent with B12 or folic acid deficiency. Those cells are consistent with activation of your immune system. Those, and in a manner that can be consistent with viral issues, or consistent with parasitic issues, or consistent with allergies. Or we look and you can see, hey, those cells are consistent with iron deficiency. So you can see where the level of the stress, a visual representation of the stress that's in the system. And again, you have if that's there, we know this is happening. So there's cause and effect. And then I also do electrodermal screening, which is kind of like electrical analysis. You're measuring balanced electrical points. It's called EAV, electroacupuncture, by Voll. Reinhard Voll, German scientist, 1950s, was told that he figured out he had bladder cancer, which was a death sentence if he treated by traditional means. But Chinese can put needles in you and get better. So he turned around and says, well, how can that work? So he had the genius idea of measuring electricity at acupuncture points, mapped the body out, and says, holy cow, yes, you can measure electricity. And at acupuncture points, it should be at a certain level. And whether it's stressed, too much yang, or deficient, too much yin, that if you balance it out, it corrects. So he explained the body electrically. And so we measure electrical points and find if frequencies associated with foods, chemicals, viruses, if they throw you out of balance, it's like a yes-no answer. So you take all this data, it all makes sense, and says, hey, based upon this, you need to eat this way, you need to drink this way, you need to take these specific minerals and these vitamins, because that's what your body actually needs. And so it's cause and effect, and that's the basis. And if I keep rambling, let me know. But then I turned around and also looked at the aspect from a naturopathic perspective. How do we interact with the world? And so I came up with what we call a 5-phase mentality, right? Phase 1 is clean up your environment: pure air, pure food, pure water, electromagnetic field, EMF protection. You can't get away from the pollution of this world, but you can decrease the amount of stress or the total load that your body has to deal with, because the day your body consumes more energy than you get from your food is the first day of disease. I can't do this, but I can do this. So let's lower this load. Clean up your environment: air purifiers, water purifiers, non-GMO foods, EMF protective devices, stuff like that. Phase 2, test. Know, what am I specifically reacting to? Do I have heavy metal toxicity? Do I have mold and mycotoxin issues? Do I have something that's a true identifiable burden? Pesticide exposure, gas metabolites, dioxins. Dioxins and PCBs are neuroendocrine disruptors. You want to talk
Mhm.
about thyroid conditions?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, let's identify what your stressors are specifically, and then phase 3, support. What do I specifically need for my chemistry to be able to handle that load? Not, hey, I need to fix this thyroid by taking glandulars and a little bit of copper and tyrosine, but let's turn around and say, what does the body need for the energy in order to make it happen? And so phase 4 is detox. Well, if I'm here, and then and my body lifestyle is here, and I start decreasing by cleaning up my environment, and then I take what my body needs and I raise my threshold. Well, now I'm gaining more energy than I'm needing. So my body says, hey, I'm going to clean up shop. And so you naturally start to detox. All this stuff you store in your fat cells, you start dumping it.
Right.
And now when I see that in people's chemistry, now I support it. Let's do some infrared sauna. Let's do some ionic foot baths. Let's get you on a biomat. Let's put you in a hyperbaric chamber. Let's do colonics, whatever the chemistry shows you need to improve that efficiency. And phase 5 is mentality. You
Mhm.
have to think positive. You have to go back and self-awareness. Hey, even if you are generating more energy than what you're getting, if you still have symptoms, then you get from that mentality, and self-awareness is like, hey, something's going on. So I need to see what am I missing to make that final correction? Where's the deficiency? So I explain all health comes into deficiency or excess. If
Mhm.
you think about it, if I have excess and toxicity of dioxins or PCBs or mycotoxins or heavy metals, then I have a deficiency because my body can't effectively handle that excess. So what we do is we give the body what it needs so it can deplete the excesses and just build energy. So it's an energy-based, true quantum approach to how to help the body. And I'm just trying to let people know that you can do this out of your own home.
That you can do it. And I think that's really important to point out, that oftentimes, especially when people are really sick, I've been to several practitioners, and they're trying to figure out what they can do to feel normal. I know that was like my whole goal in life, was to figure out how to just feel normal. My baseline was normal, and I didn't know what it was. I just knew it was better than where I was at.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think that I just knew it couldn't be that at the level I was at. And so the thing that I want to impress upon people is that if you really want to heal and get over the hump of whatever, wherever you're starting from, the point you're starting from, you need to go through a process of healing in order, you know, to even get to that normal level,
Oh,
so that it actually just snowballs and you just keep improving. But sometimes that can be an uphill battle, and there's a lot of things to look at, and it's hard to find that practitioner that can do it all, or even be aware of it all. And so
totally.
what do you suggest? How do you, I just interviewed someone else. We talked about all the things that you really should do to help, optimize your health. And sometimes that alone can be overwhelming and
Overwhelming.
exhausting, and people just kind of give up because they don't even know where to start. So do you have any thoughts or suggestions, or just some insight into give people hope? Because of that mindset can be a bugger to get better, and sometimes this can make it worse.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge. I could talk about that for an hour in itself.
Right.
The whole idea is, when you're talking, if you look at those 5 phases,
Yeah.
and it's not like phase 1 to phase 5, you have to go in an order. I'm going to tell you to start with you. Look
Mm-hmm.
at your own self-awareness. Look at, like, where am I? What do I believe? And what do I really want? Or,
Right.
and then the only thing that we could do is based upon our level of understanding. So if I turn around and I explain a quantum approach, and you're like, well, that's a little over me, you're overwhelming me, where do I start? Then I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to bring it down to say, I want you to stop eating these foods. These are the foods that I want you to start eating. These are the minerals that I want you to take, or basic vitamins that I want you to take. And then I want you to come back here in a month, and this is how much water I want you to drink. And then I want you to come back in here in a month, and we're going to measure you again.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a learning process as they go through, and But again, when you're saying where do they go, I mean, I wish that my thing is I'm ready to teach my profession. So if you go to that Doc Misak and you look up media, you'll see that I just got published in Naturopathic Doctor News and
Mm-hmm.
Review, and I have been multiple times trying to teach this concept so I can have another naturopath say, look, come in here, do this for me, because there's a lot of other stuff I want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Take this
Exactly.
off my plate, because I cannot treat the world, but what I can do is I can equip you to take care of yourself and how to understand the basics. So if you go to that Doc Misak, you'll see that I started a nonprofit group, because the whole basis is freedom of education in private groups. Because if I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to teach you a quantum approach that the powers that be, FDA, AMA, or whoever says, you know what, that's not approved or accepted in medical practice, so you can't teach that, right? So what I do is there's freedom of education under the Constitution and the Ninth Amendment. So you join a private group, and I'm going to let you know
Mm-hmm.
everything that I know. Just pick my brain all day long, and I'm going to show you an approach. And then what we've also done, and we're waiting to release, is to where you can test yourself at home, created a computer program where you can put your numbers in, and it's going to give you a basis of, hey, eat this way, drink this way. These are the basic supplements you need before you retest in another 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to give a format or a program that just simplifies it, because this is not rocket science, although I could talk on that rocket science level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. It doesn't have to be complicated. It kind of goes back to our bodies are super intelligent. They want to be well, and we just need to get out of its way. We need to allow it to do its thing. And if we have a little bit of knowledge, we can sort of help it along, and that's where we need to start. So I think that would be amazing for that to be out there for people to be able to just access and not feel like they have to, go pay for bunch of tests and they get overwhelmed with doing the test and the cost of the test and then redoing the test, where it's just,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
it's that alone causes so much stress on the system. And I'm saying this from a personal perspective. I've been there where it's, even though I was trying to get this information and get these answers, I wanted it so bad, but it got very daunting. I made it through and I did it and whatever, but it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, and maybe not everybody is willing to do that. So how can we talk about this analytical approach as it relates to thyroid function and dysfunction?
Well, there's certain patterns that you see, in every thyroid condition, I see a potassium deficiency, every one. Okay. And
Yeah.
potassium is your stress-related hormone. As you get more stress, your body's going to burn through potassium. It's going to throw mineral imbalances. Your calcium is going to be used as a stress buffering mechanism. It's going to be reappropriated where it's not supposed to do. I could get on the chemistry aspect, but when I'm looking at the chemistry, you'll always see signs in the numbers that there's a potassium deficiency, and you'll always see pHs that say that things are slowing down. So pH is a measure of resistance. So the more
Okay.
resistance, the higher the pH.
Okay.
Okay, you become more alkaline and things slow down because it's rubbing against. Say, these positive and negative charges are slowing down that way. And so what happens in thyroid? My bowels slow down. And then what happens is you're not absorbing minerals. You start getting dry skin and essential fatty acid deficiencies, and you start
Mm-hmm.
seeing all these things, and your body gets more stressed, and so the potassium gets tiled down, and you become even more different. So in order for you to convert your thyroid to an active form, you have to have selenium. That T4 to T3 conversion is a
Mm-hmm.
selenium dependent process. You have to have adequate potassium in order for your thyroid to again, to become activated and to utilize the making the thyroid hormone. Across the board, I see mineral deficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
Again, deficiency for excess. And so
Right.
if people have an excess, I've been drinking out of plastic bottles for 20 years. And, Cheryl Crow, for example, she got breast cancer. She swore it was because of being on the road and drinking from plastic bottles that tasted like plastics, and
Right.
dioxin toxicity. And dioxins are neuroendocrine disruptors, and she got breast cancer. Is what
Right.
her whole belief in that, And
Mm-hmm.
so what it is if you get exposed to these chemicals, or your body has mechanisms to handle it. But what it is we have such a load on our body, the total load, the EMF, 5G, the pesticides, the air pollution, the water pollution. What are you putting on your skin? The products that we use, you know, And our body, all those either trace amounts, it gets to a point that says, I can't do all this. So it's called congestion and,
Mm-hmm.
liver congestion and Chinese medicine. We got to get your qi flowing, right?
Right.
And so it slows down. And that's the whole classic picture of thyroid disorders. I measure the chemistry, I identify it, you start correcting the deficiencies, and within 3 to 6 months, I have most people end up having to stop their thyroid medication, even if
Mm-hmm.
they've been on it, because as the mineral repletion occurs, the thyroid starts working, and then that medication you're taking every month makes you, or every day, makes you feel like, okay, I'm hyper, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, you can go to your doctor, and they're either going to tell you to stop taking the minerals that I'm giving you, or they can retest your TSH level and say, hey, we need to reduce your dose.
Right.
So people go in, I'm like, go get tested. And the docs will read, next thing you know, they're reducing their dose, and boom, I don't need it anymore. But the process of rebuilding and restoring, don't expect to take, some selenium and potassium and not need your thyroid medication in 2 weeks. No, you've been depleting your minerals for years.
For
And
years.
so it takes you a couple years to get your minerals back to where they ought to be, but it only takes a few weeks for you to feel like, oh my God, this is real, you know?
And that is so true, because I know with my, and I won't go into the whole story with my situation either, but having my thyroid removed because of cancer and then starting the thyroid medications, I honestly thought that once I start those, that would be a game changer, a life changer for the good. And it actually was worse. I felt worse than I had before,
Oh,
because
yeah.
now we're in that limbo of figuring out the right dosage, keeping the cancer suppressed, and
Well,
getting
that's another scary thing with that is that, like, if you started working with me, if there's any residue of thyroid tissue, well, guess what your body wants to do?
mm-hmm,
It wants to make it back and say, hey, we need more of this, and now we got the nutrients, so let's start rebuilding this tissue. And in your case, if they start seeing anything grow there, what are they going to say? Oh my God, it's back. Let's take it out.
yeah, right,
And so that's not always the case. The body is amazing. It's
mm-hmm,
restorative. It's regenerative. That you have these things. We're going to talk about telomeres.
mm-hmm,
Telomeres are the end of your DNA, and as they're responsible for cells dividing and turning over and making new cells with an appropriate DNA imprint. Say, hey, well, I'm going to make a healthy cell. But as your DNA starts getting rattled and deficient and not having things and as you have other stressors that shorten your telomeres, anything from trauma and mental stress to crappy diets,
mm-hmm,
then those telomeres shorten and we age. In 2009, the Nobel Prize for Medicine was won by 3 physiologists, and they discovered an enzyme called telomerase. And as that enzyme goes up, it prevents those telomeres from shortening. So you keep making healthy blueprints. And what they
mm-hmm,
found is they reverse aged mice that had these mice that were aged to being in their 90s, white hair, blind, kidney failure. Their brains they couldn't get through mazes. They couldn't think clearly. And they stimulated this enzyme. And next thing you know, their hair went black, their kidneys restored, their cataracts cleared up, their brains grew 25%, and they had the agility of mice that were 35 years of age again. Just total reverse engineered their age. And so I discovered that in 2014, and I'm like, holy crap, natural medicine, how do I do this, So I started Googling medical research on telomerase, and I printed off 200 abstracts on telomerase. The next thing you know, I'm starting to read all these natural products: cynomorium, milk thistle, ginkgo, resveratrol or sambucus, like
mm-hmm.
the elderberry, astragalus. And I'm like, okay, so if these natural products have been doing, is anybody making natural products to try to stimulate this? And there was one. It was called TA65, which if you take the recommended dose, yeah, you got a couple $1,000s a month. It's
Yes,
expensive as hell,
yeah,
And so I turned around and said, wait a minute, compounding pharmacy, let's play. I'm an herbalist. Let's play with the herbs.
yep,
And so I started taking the herbs that had telomerase activity. I mixed them and if you look at the products that are out there, antioxidants have been shown to help telomeres. Things that reduce stress have been shown to help telomeres. Healthy diet has been shown to help telomeres.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation and relaxation has been shown to help telomeres. Going through doing counseling and dealing with past traumatic events and acceptance and forgiveness has shown to help keep your telomeres long. But then, so I looked at all these products, and they're all just glorified multivitamins and
Multivitamin.
antioxidants.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, wait a minute. So I formulated, that Vi-Telometry, and basically formulated it exactly. And I formulated it from a eclectic herbal standpoint. I looked at the herbs that I found that had activity and said, okay, astragalus, used for thousands of years for the adrenal glands, the immune system. It supports the liver metabolism. The ingredients in the astragalus have been shown, cycloastragenol and astragaloside 4, or IV, some people say. That's what's in that TA65.
Mm-hmm.
So I put astragalus and astragaloside and cycloastragenol in it. I put camellia, green tea. Why? Ellagic acids, those polyphenols, strongest antioxidants out there. There's green tea extracts have been shown to have telomerase activity as well. Purslane. Well, that's an herb. Oh, that's a thing that I'm yanking out of my garden because it's a weed, No, purslane has the richest source of omega-3 fatty acids of any plant known to mankind. Don't pull that out of your garden and throw it away. Pull it out of your garden and throw it in your salads,
Yeah.
But if you're talking essential fatty acids, what do? Your cells, every cell has essential fats in the membrane, and essential fats are dependent on inflammation processes and things moving in and out of your cells.
Mm-hmm.
So I put purslane in there. Sambucus, resveratrol, immune stimulating. There's, again, telomere activity with sambucus extracts, or telomerase activity. Milk thistle. Wow, the liver. What organ has to take care of all the stress?
All of it, yes.
The liver has to process it. Well, again, milk thistle has been shown to have telomerase activity on liver cells. Cynomorium is a really interesting one I found. Cynomorium is a Chinese yang tonic for sexual vitality. It's been shown to help men with testosterone levels. It's been shown to help women with infertility issues and balancing hormones. And in Chinese medicine, it's kind of been called the elixir of youth,
Mm-hmm.
And I've had people, make reports and emailing us saying, hey, we're in our 70s and we have our sex life back,
Wow.
after 6 years. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I put lemon, and the last two ingredients are lemon and a product called Mincol, or calcium phosphate. Why? Because, lemon, antioxidants, vitamin C and those type of things. But when you look at an electric standpoint of the body in our diet, everything breaks down to positive and negative charges, cations and anions.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a classic commercial, Dawn takes grease out of your way. Greasy
Yep.
sink, one drop of an anionic surfactant soap, and boom, that grease disappears. Well, cations cause clumping.
Mm-hmm.
Anions cause dispersing. Well, all food is cationic except lemon. Lemon is 100% anionic. So when I put it in here, I'm thinking I'm going to disperse to increase energy and heat releasing for increased energy utilization, yet alone the antioxidants, the vitamin C, and those type of potentials. And then last off, calcium phosphate.
Mm-hmm.
If you break your chemistry down in ashes to ashes, dust to dust, Carrie Reams said, hey, the human body breaks down to 60% calcium, 24% phosphorus, 12% potassium, and then 85 trace minerals make up the rest of our ashes when we go back to the ground. Well, calcium and phosphate is 84% of your body composition. You've heard of EEGs. Let me look at my brain study. You've heard of EKGs. Let me study my heart. You heard of EMGs. Let me study my muscles. They're all electrical studies, right?
Right.
They're studying how electricity goes to the body. Well, what are they measuring? The impulse of calcium influx triggering from a sodium and potassium, propagation, minerals causing electrical potential in the body. Well, calcium regulates all the other minerals in the body of what is allowed in and out of the cells on a mineral basis. So I put a little bit of calcium phosphate in there to activate the channels while we're dispersing, and it's all theoretical. I can't sit here and claim a darn thing, but I would tell people to go online and look at the reviews We have a
Mm-hmm.
65% reorder rate on this product. And what I'm
Seeing
doing with
something.
that, the whole goal is for me to make the money from this product so that I can put retreats and teach these concepts for anybody and everybody all over the United States.
Right. To give back and educate and,
Right.
get your message out there. So when people take this, give me some examples of, I know you gave one example with the 70-year-olds and their sex life, but what are some other symptoms that you see that seem to resolve that have maybe been bothering them for years?
Well, nothing that I do treat, cures, prevents, or diagnose.
Absolutely.
I analyze, teach, observe, restore. We don't do those type of things, right?
Yeah.
And so, and we can't sit here and claim that Vi-Telometry does anything for any of those symptoms
Mm-hmm.
or any of the attributes of those herbs that are in there. We can't sit there and say that because they're in there that you can expect this elixir of youth, right?
Exactly.
So, but what we do say is, I do tell people, go read the Google reviews, go read the Amazon reviews on the product. The main thing that we see is mental focus and energy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing. And when I'm looking at people's chemistry, I see a general improvement in energy efficiency in people's chemistry by
Mm-hmm.
measuring their sugar regulation, their pHs, their conductivity, on how well their body is able to generate energy. I see a positive there. So when you take
Sure.
any of those attributes, I forgot one of the ingredients is ginkgo. And
Mm-hmm.
ginkgo is used for what? Circulation in the brain. Again, for telomerase showing in those mice to increase their brain size, I'm trying to improve circulation, and ginkgo again has been shown to have telomerase activity. So what you notice is this mental focus.
Mm-hmm.
You see people reporting that their energy levels are going up, and then they're like, well, how much is it? And it's like $90 for 120 of them. I formulated them so that I formulated them that I could take up to 12 in a day. But if I take 12, you're like go 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 nonstop.
Right.
So I put a bottle of 120 so people could take 4 a day. I have them either take 4 in the morning or 2 with breakfast, 2 at lunch type deal.
Mm-hmm.
And they do really, really well. And it's about $90. And for most people out there spending $5.50 a day at Starbucks, in my opinion, it's a no-brainer.
Right.
And so it's I don't. Yeah, I'm rambling.
No, no, that's okay. I think that's what I kind of wanted to pull out is that mental focus that people can start to realize just with making some small improvements, because I feel like the majority of people that come to me, mental fog, their cognitive function is declined, recall of just people's names or thoughts or words or whatever are diminished. Their capacity is diminished, and they're not diagnosed with anything specific to that. But when they start making small strides in their improvements with their nutrition and many of the other things you talked about, stress management, meditation, those types of things, the mental focus is something that comes back actually quite quickly.
Right.
And it's nice to know that that can be related to that, enzyme activity and the health of our telomeres and keeping them at the right length and not, decreasing. So that the study with the mice is pretty amazing. I know we can't 100% extrapolate that information and say that that's what's happening in humans, but there's all kinds of research, it sounds like,
Well,
showing the
analytically
increase.
speaking, Elizabeth Blackburn, one of the physiologists that did that won the Nobel Prize, she created a company called Telomeres, and they measure your telomeres. You can send in a sample of your DNA, and they'll measure your telomeres, and they'll give you an age equivalent of is my telomeres too short, or are they kind of hanging based upon what's my age? I encourage people test to know. It's all analytical. And so I've actually at one point we were saying test your telomeres, and then we'll sell you bottles at a discounted rate. Retest your telomeres, and if you send us the results, we'll give you a bottle. And just to show. And we only had a couple people do it, and yeah, we saw that, but we don't have a statistically analytical thing that says, hey, you take our product and we don't want to qualify it as a drug. We were, it's all research from from a retail standpoint. You know what I
Right.
mean? But
Yeah.
it's just, so we got away from that to try to, because Google won't allow us to do ads saying that it's a medical research product. I'm like, no, there's nothing medical about this. And we've just had a lot of obstacles from the powers that be from letting people
Mm-hmm.
experience what they can't experience with this product. And I thank you for being on here. And anybody if you
Mm-hmm.
listens to it that's from your show or that listens to your show, if they go to Vi-Telometry, it's Vi-Telometry.com, Vi-Telometry, or if they go to docmisak.com, there's links to it, because on Vi-Telometry.com there's little whiteboard ads, and there's a third party endorsement with Kathy Ireland and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if they go and they purchase the product, if they use Rock Bottom, just type it out, Rock Bottom, we'll give them
Mm-hmm.
10% off for trying it. No problem.
Awesome. That'd be great. Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes. And so let's talk a little bit about how they can reach you specifically. So it's docmisak.com. So it's
Yeah.
docmisak.com. Okay. Again, that'll be in the show notes. And you said something else too. Oh, Vi-Telometry.
Yeah.
So yeah, to go check that out using that code rock bottom for 10% off. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah, there probably won't be a space. It'll probably just be all typed out, Rock Bottom.
Okay, perfect. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we haven't talked about or touched on? I feel like every little aspect of this, we could go down, a long road and do an hour on each topic. But since we don't have time for that, is there anything else you'd like to touch on?
I think that we've mostly covered it. I find that the attention span today, people like shorter shows and longer shows anyway.
Absolutely, yeah.
I just encourage, learn, find, know who you are, explore yourself, just find that aspect of, don't accept the status quo,
Right.
and, get a new level of understanding of what is possible for you, and believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's a God creature, and you're made perfect in His image, and so He wants only the best for you. And hopefully, there's a message that says, "Hey, there's something out there, and it's not in a pill. I'm not going to tell you buy my product and it's the cure all,
Right. Yeah.
But there is a process, and what I try to teach is the process.
Yeah. Teach a process to enable people to, well, I guess to empower people so they can feel amazing. You
And
can feel how
spread the
they're
word
supposed to feel.
to empower others.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the name of the game. That's why we do what we do, to try to educate people so that they can feel great and amazing instead of the other way, which is far too common, unfortunately. So
Right.
I really appreciate you being here. Like I said before, all the information will be in the show notes, and you can check out Dr. Misik's stuff there and check out his product. And anyway, I just really appreciate you being here. It's great information.
Thank you. It was fun. I love doing it. Thank you very much.
Sounds good. All right, take care.